Ix Shen! Welcome to the show.
Hi everyone. When I was standing on my balcony, I saw a circular flash in the sky. The Ukraine is under attack. The president has declared state of emergency. The closest that the fighting has ever came to me, maybe the end of the room whereby the...
That's so freaking close.
So today's episode is a little bit different. We've got an extremely special guest with us today whose story hits close to home. The world today is more uncertain than ever, and if you watch the news cycle is filled with stories of natural disasters, political unrest, pandemics, and more. And of course, war. Today's guest will provide a first-hand account of his experience of the latter. Please welcome OG Singaporean actor, recent author, accidental war correspondent for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and my mother-in-law's favorite actor, Ix Shen! Welcome to the show.
Hi everyone.
So before we dive into it, because I think we have a lot of questions, especially about the aforementioned Russian invasion of Ukraine. But firstly, a little birdie told me that there's a very interesting origin story to your name. How did your name come about?
Interesting was not how I said it to his face.
And he's a little birdie.
I was like, what the
My name, as you know, Ix is actually a Roman numeral.
IX.
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell them why. You tell them why.
why?
In our generation, right, most of my classmates were all Chinese speaking.
Okay.
So we tend to tease each other instead of calling names and things like this. They will, my friends will tease me as a 9号，那老师要见你。
Oh, but why?
Why?
Because that was my volleyball jersey number.
Like
Jersey number.
Oh.
What sport?
Volleyball.
Wow. Okay.
It's not like, it doesn't sound like something.
Yeah.
No, it's meant to be made fun because it's like hostess like that. I want number 9. I want number 3.
Is that how it goes? Okay.
In the 70s, back then, most moms were housewives. And a lot of girls who were not married, they tend to work as dance hostess. Because back then there was no KTV, right? So dance hostess. And when you work as dance hostess, right, they have number tag.
Oh, like pageant. So you get to choose.
The patrons will go to a bar, they will buy a dance coupon, and then they will give the coupon to whichever dance hostess they want to dance with.
Right. So it's meant to be
actually dance
derogatory
with
when they
them.
say. They dance on you.
That's so fun.
But that sounds a bit wholesome.
Yeah, no, that's like going to a club with a guaranteed experience.
No, it's just rock and I think at the time was Agogo. I think Agogo was
Go dancing. By calling Ix by a number, it's kind of derogatory, like assuming that you're one of these dance hostess.
Yes.
Okay, but then you decided to own it, so then you get yourself the name Ix.
The audacity go on TV and say, hi guys, my name is Ix.
yeah, that's it. Then and it just stuck with me ever since.
Okay. So anyway, let's dive into it. For some context, and this is if we assume that Wikipedia is correct, please correct us if we're wrong. But you moved to Kyiv when with you and your wife in 2021.
Yes.
And less than a year later in 2022, you and your family find yourself in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what was going through your mind when reality hit that, this invasion is happening?
You don't have that mental capacity to think too much. You only know that war has started and you might not be alive the next day. That's all you care about. Because once war started, your fight and flight response has kicked in. You don't process so many other things. You just try to stay alive and hope that you'll still be alive the next day.
Was there a particular moment, like was it watching the news of like the tanks, or was it like the sound of like...
For me, on the eve of the invasion, I remember when I was standing on my balcony, I saw this circular flash in the sky. At first I thought it was the moon.
Also,
but
it's a very big circle in the sky.
yeah, relatively, it's about the same size where the moon would be. But then it just disappeared like that. And then I thought, okay, unless the clouds were moving so fast, then later when the boom came.
Because the sun comes later.
Yes, then I realized, I think that was an aerial intercept, right? Then that's when I think, okay, I think the invasion has really started. And when I tried to share that what I saw on the balcony with my wife didn't believe me. She think I was just hallucinating.
Right. Despite the boom.
Yes. Because it was only one boom. At that time, I was actually kind of stuck. Like, did I hallucinated that explosion? Or things like, but then, like in the wee hours, about 4 something, 5 something, then the big wave came, and then the whole barrage came, and then the whole city was woken up.
If I recall correctly, at that point, it felt like Russia was posturing. No one thought the invasion was actually going to happen.
Then you have to go back to the timeline of events. In the winter of 2021-2022, the Russian was actually having a military build-up along the borders of Ukraine, all the way into Belarus. Once the military build-up reached a substantial number, a lot of warning signs starts to appear, right? Then, if you remember, the United States started to say that the invasion, there's a very high risk of invasion. The NATO was saying that the high risk of invasion and things like this. But if you recall, on the February 9, I think it was only 17 or 15, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, actually traveled to Munich and announced that, saying that they do not think there is going to be invasion because it's very damaging to the Ukraine economy. If the whole world thinks that Ukraine is going to be invaded, and then all the businesses starts to pull out and things like this. And if you recall, before the actual invasion, the president of France, Macron, and the chancellor of Germany also visited the Kremlin. And then they also got the assurance from the Kremlin saying that Russia have no intention of attacking Ukraine. That was all this has been said, including Putin himself that flew to Beijing to attend the opening of the Winter Olympics.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And repeated that they have no intention of attacking Ukraine.
Right. So what's happening in Ukraine? Like when the world is saying an invasion seems imminent, what were Ukrainians doing?
Oh, okay. Ukrainians know that the fighting is going to flare up.
Wow.
Yeah, Ukrainians knew it all along because the war has been ongoing for the last 8 years. It's just on the east. What do you mean the attack is going to start? It has never stopped.
It's just that it's going to escalate.
Yes.
Right.
But then so most Ukrainians were mentally prepared that the escalation is going to build up on the eastern front, which is where it has been fighting for the last 8 years. They just think that all this build up is just going to be like smoke screen so that they have this opportunity to scale up an attack on the eastern front, which is what they have been doing for the last 2.5 years, which is always about the eastern front. But what most Ukrainians didn't expect was the betrayal of Belarus, because Belarus allowed the Russian forces to use their border to attack straight into Kyiv. From Kyiv, capital of Ukraine, to the nearest point of the border between Ukraine and Russia is over like 500 kilometers long. And then there are really military units in place to protect that the line of attack. But then there weren't a lot of military installation to protect against Belarus, which has always been a friendly neighbor. And this betrayal was something that literally caught everyone off guard. And when you're betrayed by the person who is, or betrayed by the country that's closest to you, then that's when the word says shit hits the fence.
So it's easier to obviously think about this in hindsight, but there were news that the imminent invasion was probably going to happen, and you mentioned as well people were kind of expecting it. And I think MFA also actually put out advisories for Singaporeans in Ukraine to actually evacuate.
Yes, they did.
From what I read, you didn't actually evacuate immediately or ahead of time. Was it because of this, like you mentioned, you just thought it was another smoke screen?
No. The main reason was let's not forget it was during COVID times. There was very few places that you can actually book a flight ticket and let alone travel with our cats.
Yes, I saw 4 cats.
Because during COVID time, it's really difficult to travel cross border, let alone animals. And some countries or most carriers actually refuse to carry animals at that time. Because they think they cannot guarantee that this animal might be able to grant entry upon arrival. And then as an air carrier, they do not want to be stuck with this problem of a live animal that they are not responsible for entry permit.
So at some point you were trying to apply for travel visas for your cat.
To be fair, we actually did research what are the options that we could still travel without that 48-hour PCR. You just need to have proof of vaccination and that country, and plus the plane carrier willing to transport the humans and the animals was Egypt.
Egypt like cats, right?
Yeah, Egypt is pretty much they are a pet-friendly country. Yes, but once the attack start, the airspace becomes closed, then that goes out the window.
Actually, can you talk me through in detail? Where were you? What happened when you realized the invasion has taken place? Like, how did you know the sirens, the evacuation, the mass mob of everyone trying to leave home and to go where?
Wow.
Can we begin from when you were asleep?
So once the attack in Kyiv started, it started with the first barrage of airstrikes.
Okay.
So during the airstrikes, there will be a lot of air defense counter batteries that goes up, and some are successful intercepts, some are unsuccessful intercept, and then some of these missiles will strike the ground. Because the first barrage is always the most intense. The primary targets are the airports and the presidential palace.
Right.
So once the big missiles are like the Kinzhal and the Iskandar, once they strike the airports, right, you can literally, it wakes up the whole city. Because of the payload and the amount of explosive involved, you literally, it shakes your window plane. And also because of our proximity to some of these targets. The entire city wake up and people will start to panic.
Yeah.
So when you start panicking, you try to get information that you can carry fight. And same time, this is where a full-scale invasion is really different from a terrorist attack. A full-scale invasion coming, right? The kinetic front, you have first we call the airstrike. But on the cyber front, they actually attack a lot of communication gateways. Right. So being our generation that we have a habit of checking our phones for info, right? You'll notice a lot of information on networks or things are actually down.
Right.
So you will have difficulty logging on, or even you log on, the page doesn't refresh itself and things like this. This is a time where you really have to fall back on very traditional form of communication, like the FM radio. FM radio is still working, and also the television, but we do not have but we do have an FM radio.
As in your house just didn't have a television?
We have the LCD, but we do not plug into the yes. So from the FM radio, you could tune into the national broadcast, and then from the national broadcast, you could you hear what is being announced.
What was being announced?
What is announced is Ukraine is under attack. The president has declared state of emergency. Martial law has taken over.
Wow.
And all airspace is closed. And then stay tuned for more information.
What were you told to do?
Stay safe in
Stay indoors.
Stay indoors and stay indoors and stay safe.
So then what was that like between like you and your wife? Like what were you discussing? What was the state of mind?
Well, first we want to check what's happening. I remember when I leaned out on my balcony, I looked down at the street and I could see some of my neighbors carrying different luggages and then rushing to cars or waiting cars and things like this. Everybody is trying to get away from Kyiv. And because we do not have a car, right? So then I have to discuss with my wife. It's like, okay, if we do not have a vehicle, which means we need to stay put, or at least until we could find a form of transport. Yeah. Because it didn't really make a lot of sense for us to travel by public transport at that point in time, because you do not know whether it's public transport working. Fortunately, being grown up in Singapore, you still have this Kiasu syndrome. So, I actually stock up on food and supplies 1 week ago.
Right.
Yeah, during the military
in
build-up.
anticipation of the build.
Wow. We do not have a car, but we have a family friend that has a car. Psycho this person, I said, hey, there's a military build-up. Maybe you should just stock on food and things like this. And then since you got a car, now we go on the shopping trip. In Kyiv city, they have this thing called hypermarts. Those big hypermarts, metro.
Like buy in bulk.
Yeah, you buy in bulk. So you buy rice in 25 kilogram packs.
Oh my God.
Like a Costco.
Yes, exactly. At least in terms of ration and supply, we know that we are still okay.
Okay. I remember watching a couple of clips like back like 2 years ago when you were on CNA, and I remember seeing you. I think you recorded or like you were on a video call in the middle of a pit stop. So like you were driving and then you were talking about dates and how like you're so grateful about the dates. So you managed to get a car in the end.
We managed to.
Their car,
in some ways.
Oh my God! It's like a
commandeer.
It's like zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. No. Okay. The word abandon only applies because they abandoned it in their garage, because their garage have more than one car. Their garage have many cars. So they took those cars that is most important for them and evacuated. So they had spare cars that needed the car jockeys. So we were actually car jockeying for the car owners.
So hold on, when you got paid
No,
No, okay, butter. At that point, you were woken up in the middle of the night. The first barrage was happening.
Yeah.
You all made sense of the situation via FM radio. What was the next day and the day after like? Because I don't imagine in Kyiv that every house has a bomb shelter as well.
Not every
Yours
house.
had?
Yes. It used to be a bomb shelter during the Soviet Union days.
Wow.
Okay.
So that former bomb shelter has now become an underground car park.
Okay.
So we just went to and rest in the car park instead.
Rest in the
Oh, so
Wait, so
immediately
you're not
you hit
in
the-
your apartment?
During the air raid warning, no. Because once they issue the air raid warning, right, you have to find an underground bunker to hide out.
And those are like sirens.
Yes.
So what are the first things you grab before you leave the house with your wife?
If you have been through NS, you know what is turnout.
I
Don't know.
don't know.
Okay, when you
I
turn
wish I
out, right,
know.
you will have your full pack, your equipment, and things like this. So you can just wear it and then quickly rush out of the bunk
Right.
and then go into
Right.
your foreign.
And you
parade
have that
already.
prepared already.
Yes, so I prepared a 10 backpack. So
like a
all
go bag lah.
Yeah, emergency bag by the door and our 4 cats.
And what was the situation at the bunker? Because presumably you had a lot of neighbors there. They
Yeah.
may not have stockpiled.
Yeah.
They just ran down in their
All kinds. No,
pajamas.
Oh my God,
in the
yeah.
neighborhood bunker, you really have all kinds of characters. Actually, a good thing because when all the neighbors all congregate together in the bunker, everybody start to share information and of course help to pacify each other's insecurities and anxiety. And because once the network become more extensive, the information becomes different. So you have a better picture of what's happening. Because every neighbor would have their own relatives or friends at different cities or different parts of Ukraine
Different
that
information.
actually have live. Really real accounts of what's happening on the ground, or some have spotted. Okay, they've seen the Russian tanks, or some have seen the Ukrainian soldiers and things like this. So we know roughly what is going on,
Right.
in the overall sense. At that time, in the beginning of the invasion in Kyiv, because there are hostile land forces spotted. So Kyiv was at the risk of being overrun by the Russian ground troops. So because of the presence of the Russian ground troops, it was actually a very dangerous and hostile environment. And Kyiv was under military curfew most of the time. So you can't do anything during the military curfew hours. You just stay home or stay in the bunker. Once the curfew has been released or things like this, then you used to use this spare time to go to the supermarket or run to
Groceries.
the pharmacy.
Shops still open.
Specific, usually the bigger players and things like this.
But the fact that people were still going to work at this like supermarket.
They are actually the heroes as well.
Yeah.
Because they have to take the risk from their own home
Exactly.
and travel to this supermarket so that they can put food on the shelf and pack bags, food into bags
Exactly,
and work as
yeah.
cashier for all these people and still rush back home.
I would imagine that there was also considerable risk that you took for like documenting and for actually becoming a war correspondent, war correspondent eventually. Like, how did that actually come about from sharing stuff on social media to actually like CNA contacting you to correspond for them?
Wow. Oh, okay. Before I became an actor, I was actually working in SPH as a press photographer. When the Russian invasion of Ukraine started, I didn't have time to monitor so much in Singapore side our media news and things like this. I only started monitoring, I think, I forgot on the second day or something. And I noticed that we actually have a local, the domestic voice saying that this is fake news. Is not real attack. This is our local media scene wise also do not have any reporters on site because whatever news they use were based off Western news.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wires
And
stuff
Russian news
that-
lah.
Yes. And they claim that these were just bias. So that was when I felt that, I cannot just sit by and let this go on because I think Singaporeans are not having a fair report of what is happening on site. And that's when I started to contact some of these people that I know still in the media.
So you reached out to them to say
Yes.
I will be your correspondent.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Because someone has to tell Singaporeans what is really happening.
Yeah.
Instead of blaming Singapore media for reporting what Western media is reporting.
I remember during that period before you made a lot of money in crypto and bought your Land Rover, right? This story was hack, by the way, guys.
It was a hack post.
Anyway, before you bought the dream car, I remember there was one period when you were there, right, where you posted a reel every day that shows that
Yeah.
and it was quite a real fear because there are some days you never check in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh my god, is he dead? There was one period you were quite consistent in your upload timing.
Correct.
And then got one period you miss your upload timing. Then
Yeah.
he's dead. Like gone already.
That's so scary to
And then
think
next day he
about.
come back.
Yeah.
I okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, so scary.
It
Just
can
follow.
be the sigh of relief.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that is the truth of living in a war zone because you only hope that you will still be around tomorrow.
Yeah.
Was there considerable risk though, documenting this and actually journalizing this?
I didn't embed myself into any military unit and actually go to the actual fighting. But the closest that the fighting has ever came to me is like maybe the end of the room whereby
They're so freaking close.
No, it was not. I think it was not trying to attack me. I think it was just a round that ricochet off the roof.
A ricochet off the roof.
So
5
dangerous.
Oh my word.
So I say our studio not very big.
It's like 8 paces away.
Yeah.
Okay, and sorry, so during that period, right,
Yeah.
were there, because you mentioned earlier that after the liberation of Kyiv, then you all could go to supermarkets and whatnot again, right?
No, we could still go to the supermarket during the fighting. It's just that it's just that the hours of the supermarket became erratic. Yeah.
What was it like leading up to the liberation of Kyiv? Did you encounter Russian troops? Did you encounter Ukrainian troops forming up? Were there cheers from the public? You know, when you see the Ukrainian troops come and you feel a sense of ease. Can you tell me about that?
Where I live is quite near the Dnipro River. And then over spanning this river, there's this bridge that I think will be considered in terms of a load-bearing bridge that can handle heavy military vehicle. So there was this firefight that happened between the Russian reconnaissance team and the Ukrainian soldiers. So yeah, that was where the soldiers literally form up along the street below my balcony, and then from there they form up, they do their equipment check, and then they go to the area, they form their firing engagement line, and then over there they wait for the Russian reconnaissance to cross that bridge, and then as they're crossing the bridge, the firefight
fire.
started.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
So you literally saw soldiers getting shot at as well.
yeah.
Wow.
How I came to be aware of what's developing at the bridge, I was in the kitchen and then I heard because before a firefight, we don't do it here because we do not do actual war. Before a firefight, soldiers need to test their weapon first in case of blockage and misfire.
Right.
So this was what caught my attention. But then I went out, I see, oh, okay, they're just testing weapon. But then there is no firefighting.
Yeah.
Then the next question I ask is, why are soldiers testing their
That's
weapon
a great
around
question.
the neighborhood?
Yeah, that's a
You
good
know?
question.
Then I started to hang around the balcony to see the whole firefight evolve. And then when the Ukrainians, they also have a armor carrier. And armor carrier, on top of camera, they have this MG.
Yeah. Machine gun.
Yeah. So when the reconnaissance vehicles came into sight, the MG started firing, and the reconnaissance also had the MG. And then when MG started to fire, when you hear small fires, no problem, you can stay at the balcony. But once you hear the heavy caliber, right, you take cover. You don't stay around anymore.
But you stayed.
No, after that. Once
Your balcony is like bar one or like concrete slab one.
bar.
So you were
Oh
like
my
naked lah, like pretty much
Not
can see,
naked,
can
it was
see your
winter. It was
full
winter.
body
I
lah.
was wearing,
I see. And so
no cover.
were there at any point of time, like when Russian troops like march past, right, or like walk past, right, that the Ukrainians were booing and jeering them?
I
and
was
when
fortunate. The area that I was living, the only time the Russian troop came was the reconnaissance unit, and then they were
Okay.
taken out. So I think the main unit where they were wrecking for didn't follow up. So my neighborhood, we didn't see any more Russian troops in mass. Those places that see Russian troops in mass are those that has became occupied by them.
Yeah.
Some of our friends did. And it's quite scary because we have these friends that they will just post outside their bedroom window a picture of a Russian tank parked outside their house.
Right. My God.
Yeah, and it's very scary because they do not know when they'll start knocking on doors.
Yeah, I do want to move on to the evacuation, your eventual evacuation. I think I read that you and your wife were able to get out and move to Poland? What were the circumstances that allowed for that to happen?
Well, first we managed to find someone that has a spare car that need the car jockey. And
So lucky to get this job.
Is it you just walk and then you're like, hey, you got a spare car?
No.
Oh, it's like it was a connection.
There was a friend of a friend of a friend. At that time, Kyiv has not been liberated yet. So we do not know which route is safe and which route is not safe. That's why you call, they have this, ceasefire corridor. So for humanitarian access and things like this. But like I can tell you, in any military conflict, anyone who claims this is a ceasefire corridor usually is 50%.
Yeah.
Because no one can guarantee that this ceasefire corridor will not be fired upon.
It's like Scout's honor, but you don't know if the other end will hold up their end.
No, there's no way you can know. There's no way.
It's a solid trap to get everyone in the same place.
As well. Because sometimes they will do it. They will actually announce it's a ceasefire corridor so that they want people to evacuate, and then they will fire upon, and then to create a second chaos. Because the ceasefire corridor is being announced by different organizations at the time, because the invading side was also announcing some ceasefire corridor, then the defending side also announcing ceasefire corridor, then also you have Red Cross announcing, and so many organizations were announcing their own ceasefire corridor. So to bet on which ceasefire corridor that we should be using to evacuate, that becomes a case of a guessing game. So in the end, I was discussing with my wife, I think we can bet on this particular ceasefire corridor that we can use because it was announced by the China embassy in the Ukraine.
Right.
Because I'm quite sure that Russia will not attack this ceasefire corridor.
Okay.
So we use that
for relations.
They
want to mess with China. Right. Okay.
Wow. What a gamble though.
It was a gamble.
It's like, what was the living situation then in Poland? Like, do you know a place to go to, or let's just get there and figure it out?
No, but Poland was not a destination. We actually only wanted to evacuate to the west of Ukraine. The particular city that we actually have friends saying that they could help us settle in and things like this was Lviv. So Lviv at that time was something like a backup capital of Ukraine. Because yes, they were having a lot of armed forces and infrastructure and all the personnel and things like this. So we thought, okay, let's just evacuate to Lviv, which could be safer than Kyiv, because at least there was no land force attack. But there were still airstrikes. When we reached Lviv, we have another housing problem. A lot of Ukrainians were evacuating into Lviv as well. And when a lot of Ukrainians squeeze into one city like that, Lviv couldn't cope with all this population influx. And the housing priorities they will give to those refugees with children or multi-generational family. And for two of us with 4 cats, we rank very low. So because of that, then I discussed maybe we should look at Poland. But why we never use Poland as a first option is because at that time, because there was COVID, we were not familiar with the entry requirement.
Right.
Because especially for humans and for animals as well. But very fortunately, in the first week of March, Poland was actually the first country that waived all entry requirements of it against EU vice.
Wow.
Because EU at that time was still very concerned over COVID, and then they're saying that we have been fighting for this COVID for the last 2 years. We do not want Poland you to open your border, and then we set us back again. So it was actually, they were actually against the EU recommendation, and then they took the risk, said no, we don't care, we want to save people first.
Respect.
Yes. Fortunately, we managed to get proper news in requirement on how to enter Poland, but we still couldn't check what are the entry requirement for pets.
Right.
Because they only say they announce for humans, right? And
them burdens,
like fair enough also.
Excuse you.
No, because EU has very stringent control in pets and animals importation. Very, very, very strict. And Ukraine at the time was not part of EU. I mean, until now, it's still not part of EU. Right? So for a Ukraine animal to enter the EU, you still have a certain set of requirement.
Yeah.
And we need to find a vet in the bordering city of Lviv that understand all these requirements, what are the vaccination and things like this, that still operates during a wartime period.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And have stock of all this vaccine
Yeah.
that they have to import from EU.
Yeah.
It was fortunate we managed to find one vet, but then this vet is booked for weeks.
Oh my god.
Yes, and then we had to beg, and they said, okay, no problem. No, you just come to me during the lunchtime. I see what I can do.
Oh,
wow.
lunchtime,
Right.
Singapore
Yeah, so
lunchtime.
the vet kind of skipped lunch to help us with our
Pockets.
vaccination.
Yeah.
So when you eventually got to Poland, were you was there a refugee camp? Were you able to get a hotel? Like, what was the living situation?
We're fortunate because once we reached Lviv, the internet was a lot more stable. So we could actually source out a lot of housing options in Poland, and then we find a suitable city with a suitable place that we could house at least for like a month or so.
Okay.
And then we book a service apartment in the city of Krakow, and then we just went there. Once you're out of Ukraine, because it's no longer in a war zone environment, because it's EU and it's well protected, you have plenty of resource, food, and things like this. The United Nations hadn't set up the refugee center on the border town yet, but they did set up a distribution center in various cities to help process the influx of refugee. It was actually a very humbling sight to see so many distraughted people that just trying to come to terms of what is happening. And it's also very heartwarming to see a lot of all these, because a lot of them are all self-organized, different help group from different city and different countries, all setting up their own tentage to help facilitate the evacuation or the way of rehousing them and things like this. It was both heartwarming and also very sad.
Were the Poles accommodating?
The Poles were the most accommodating. They were the one that literally bent backwards to help. Wow. Because the biggest refugee processing center was in Warsaw. Because the Warsaw, the transport hub, the train station and the long distance bus all arrive at the same point. So that is almost like the first port of call for the refugees. So once you go in there, then it's really like, it's almost like a carnival in some ways, because you have a lot of different tentage set up by different organizations coming from different countries, speaking different languages and things like this. And everybody is running their own help services, saying that, okay, for example, this one has a family of 4 and maybe they have one family member that speak Italian, and then they'll try to house them in some Italian town.
And all these are volunteers.
Yeah, most of them are volunteers.
So, like, speaking of this, I remember reading that MFA was actually assisting and helping to provide some assistance to like Singaporeans who were still in the Ukraine. So, like, I think there were a number of these stories, and they were very heartwarming and actually brought up like the community spirit amongst like our ASEAN neighbors as well. I think one of them was a Singaporean who had just moved to Kyiv. He wanted it to be his home base because he was going to explore Eastern Europe. And he came back from a ski trip when the Russian invasion actually like just began. And at that time, MFA linked him up with the Malaysian embassy so that he could join, I think 9 Malaysians to like fly out or like to drive out of Ukraine. I think there was another story. This is a Singaporean with her brand new newborn baby, Olivia, and I think like Lana. And MFA actually contacted her every single day to make sure she was okay, provided her with assistance, provided or expedited the issuing of a document of identity for the baby, and then linked her up with the Thai embassy in, I believe, Romania, so that she could get out of the country. And she was documenting how, like, because the MFA caseworker that was with her, like checking with her, like all the way, every single pit stop, right? And then when she finally called him at 3 a.m. to say, I have 3 a.m. in Singapore, I finally crossed the border, like it was like relief for like everybody.
Can you imagine the call center in MFA in Singapore? Like, there's a whole team of people that's just really tracking every Singaporean overseas. And it'll be like it feels like the rocket landed safely, that kind of vibe for them.
I mean, personally, I also recommend people to register when they're overseas, because then they should always check the MFA website on the advisory what is happening to the destination that you intend to travel to, or what are the potential of how this destination is going to develop. You should always check and be conscious about it.
Especially now when the world is becoming a more uncertain place.
Exactly. I mean, I fully support anyone who wants to help people. But if you want to help people, don't be a burden.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you spoke about being in Poland for a month, and I think you did something that not many people would think of doing, which is that you actually returned to Ukraine and actually volunteered to
Yeah,
provide
I saw.
humanitarian aid.
Yeah, it was actually like very casually because after we have evacuated, my wife being a medical professional, she still have a lot of doctors still in Ukraine that found out that she has evacuated, and then they were very relieved for her. But same time, they were also asking her inquiries about, oh no, can she help her get certain medical supplies because the hospitals and the pharmacies were running, the supplies were running low very quickly, very drastically inside Ukraine. And then after that, she discussed with me. I said, yeah, sure, no, we'll see what we can do to help. Then we started asking around. Casually, one person led to another person, and then we found this group of people who were actually bringing supplies back into Ukraine the next day. Then they asked, do you want to come along? Then you just hop on, you just hop into the vehicle.
Just the next day, you just make a decision like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
Like both of you go together?
No. She stayed behind and looked after the cats.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, you don't plan so much.
Yeah.
You just know what is in need. You need to deliver to where, and then you just try to cram as many things into the car as possible, and then you just go.
This was a car.
It's van. It was
sure.
There were 3 vans.
Okay.
That's a weird question. What was the goodbye with your wife?
I was gonna ask the question. Yeah.
Wow, I don't remember that, but she was still more stressed over driving the rented car back because she knew I was traveling in a safe company. They were former military or military personnel from different countries and things like that. So it's actually she knows that you guys know what you are doing, so she was not worried.
But you never know,
Yeah,
right?
That is true, but you don't think like that anymore. You know, this group of people are focused and they know they are going into a conflict zone to give help. You know, they are not trying to go into a conflict zone to ask for help.
Yeah.
So you don't have that lack of confidence or anxiety.
So as with most media cycles, I think like after the initial attention and interest, like ongoing wars take a backseat after a while. Like what is the current situation in Ukraine and in Kyiv right now?
Okay, in Kyiv, they're still having a lot of airstrikes. And right now, they come in much larger waves. By now, there's a combination of drones and missiles. And it's actually very annoying because the drones come in large wave. It's one wave can be like 30 drones and things.
Right.
It's just to distract the air defense.
Yeah.
Because what is usually traveling parallel or in tandem with all these waves is actually the missiles.
Right.
And the missiles, the most deadly one is still the Iskander and the Kinzhal because of their velocity, and it's very difficult to intercept. It can be intercepted, but it relies only on one system, the Patriot system.
Yeah.
And to make the matter worse, they learned from the US and the NATO, so they converted the old bombs. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union built a lot of these big bombs, like the 1,500 kilograms or 2,000 kilograms. And then they added these glide wings to it.
Yeah.
So now what happens is when you have a glide bomb, it has no propulsion, it has no engine. Which means there's no heat signature. Yes.
Right.
So right now the air attack is actually it's become very massive and complicated.
Yeah.
You need to now in Kyiv, you really need to pay attention to the air raid warning. But the air raid warning has also progressed so technical that you need to identify which aircraft has been detected that have taken off. So you know this aircraft, what are the kind of warheads or munitions that will come with this. So even kids will understand, they will see the airstrip, this one is I-35, no problem. Now we can continue to play in the playground. Or then they see, this one is a 53, then we need to take cover.
Are you still based in Kyiv?
I'm still traveling out.
He's going back in one.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, given that the air raid is still happening, why not move out? Or is that still because it's home?
First of all, there's home, and my wife actually has a lot of patients that actually very appreciative of her choosing to stay in Kyiv to give the TCM therapy.
For context, your wife is Ukrainian.
Yes, my wife is Ukrainian. She's a TCM practitioner in Ukraine. But overall, a lot of the Ukrainians there are very appreciative of her staying in Kyiv to provide this service.
Yeah.
So is for us is we just see it as a commitment to the people that are appreciative to.
Speaking of which, how did you and your wife meet actually?
Well, we actually met online first.
Oh,
So cute.
Yeah. At that time, we were just chatting, and then I
Like
was
Tinder, that kind of like dating app.
something like this.
Okay. Why you embarrassed? No shame on it. That's how people meet.
At the time, I was actually in the United States, and then we started chatting, and she reflected her interest of coming to visit me in Beijing.
Yeah, because you were based in China at that time.
I was based in China, but those few months I happened to be in the United States. She started to visit me, and then she became more and more interested in the Chinese medicine. And after that, at the time she was interning in the hospital in Ukraine because she studied Western medicine. Then she thinks that she wants to study Chinese medicine, and then
Wow, you completely changed the trajectory of her life, yeah.
in some ways, yes. So she came over to Beijing and then got into enroll into the Beijing, the University of Chinese Medicine, and after that we just became together.
Wow. And besides her being Ukrainian, like, why did you guys decide to move to Kyiv?
When COVID broke out, foreigners like us in China, our visas are just not renewed.
Right.
Her visa was only after graduation, so that she had to go back. And then I had to come back to Singapore as well because I still didn't apply for Ukrainian visa, residency permit at that time. And because we were all separated, and COVID was very difficult. I was choosing whether I bring her and the cats come to Singapore, or I and the cats go to Ukraine.
So the cats were in China already.
The cats were still stuck in China, living with
These
different
cats
friends.
are more well-traveled than me, yeah.
Yeah. The cats actually have another adventure story of their own.
Yeah, I feel like stay tuned for next episode how you met your cats.
Wow, that's also really interesting. So what happened was finally, based on the entry requirement that was allowed for cats, we can all go to live in Ukraine.
Speaking of which, from someone who's so resourceful, right? When you travel, do you have like special tools or things that you prepare for?
Like when you're going back to Ukraine,
Yeah.
what's one weird thing that you bring that I probably won't bring?
I will bring a radioactive gamma scanner, and a thermal imager.
What's that?
Radioactive gamma scanner is in case of a nuclear radiation strike, so you know which area has been contaminated.
Oh.
Yeah, and then a thermal imager, it helps when there are no lights and there are no electricity. In case you are in a hostile situation, you can detect foreign bodies.
Why is that bad? Why don't maybe think about? Okay,
Wait,
never mind,
can we
why
buy
is
these
that?
off Shopee?
You can.
Also for
11.
search and rescue if you want to be part of search and
Yeah,
rescue.
if you're
find
part of search
bodies.
and rescue, but
Find
I'm not
bodies.
doing it for search and rescue. I'm just doing it for extra protection.
Yeah, good.
After the first year, it was the end of 2022 when it was Christmas season in Ukraine and Kyiv. What was the most popular Christmas present? They give Christmas. They kind of give Christmas and New Year present together, right? Was actually the tourniquet and gas mask.
Right.
That was
There's
the
a
most popular
Christmas present.
Yeah, that was very popular because
Oh my
everybody was
God.
visiting each other's house and then giving each other tourniquet and gas mask. That's the beautiful thing about the Ukrainian people to live in the situation. No, they laugh in the face of fear.
Yeah.
Impressions of Invasion, Ix Shen, a correspondent in Ukraine. Is this available in all major bookstores? as well
Yes,
as online?
available in most major bookstores, but it's easiest to find on the Amazon.sg. On Amazon website, they do carry both the English and the Chinese book.
What do we expect in this book?
It's actually how I recount my experience and many of the stories that we have been sharing today. That what happened during the time when the invasion started all the way until we managed to evacuate out of Ukraine.
All right, guys, we've come to the end of the episode. We want to thank Ix for sharing his experience and for that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful insights. Again, the message is if you're traveling anywhere in the world, e-register your travels so the MFA can contact you and or provide assistance should an emergency occur. We'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.
He was a journalist in China though, so it's
Yeah, Lord, that's why.
So I wasn't a journalist in China. I was actually in the movie industry. I was an executive director.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Can we just cut that part out completely?
Okay, you want to try that again?
Yeah, but he's an executive director in China though.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,